The sky cracked again, not with thunder but with something sharper, like glass breaking across the horizon. The princess didn't flinch. She had long since decided that if the planet insisted on sounding dramatic every few minutes, she would simply refuse to react. Dignity, after all, was a discipline. "Your Highness," one of her guards murmured, his armor flickering as it recalibrated against the charged air, "the human has arrived." She turned slowly, more out of curiosity than necessity. The human stood at the edge of the landing platform, entirely unimpressive. No glowing armor, no shifting plates, no elegant energy field humming around him like the others. His suit looked solid, heavy, old. It made a faint creaking sound when he moved, which, in a palace of silent technology, was almost offensive. "That," she said, tilting her head slightly, her long ears angling with the motion, "that is my protector." Oh. The human inclined his head. Yes. That was it. No speech, no introduction, no attempt to impress her. Just yes, as if he had answered a question about the weather. One of her officers tried and failed to hide a laugh. The princess didn't bother hiding hers. "Does it do anything?" she asked, gesturing vaguely at his armor. "Or is it purely decorative?" "It works," he said. She blinked. "That's your entire defense. It's been enough so far." Oh. The confidence in his voice wasn't loud. It wasn't even particularly strong. It was just there, solid, like a statement that didn't need support. She found it irritating. "Charming," she said dryly. "And I assume you were assigned to me as some kind of historical exhibit." He didn't react, not even a flicker. For a moment, she wondered if he had understood the insult. Then he shifted slightly, positioning himself, not in front of her, not behind her, but just to the side, close enough to intervene, far enough to not obstruct. "You can speak freely," she added, folding her arms. "I won't be offended. I know," he replied. That made her pause. "You know, yes." There was no arrogance in it, no challenge, just certainty again. She exhaled slowly, already tired of this conversation. "Very well," she said, turning away. "Try not to fall apart. I would hate to have to explain to my council that my protector collapsed due to age." Behind her, she thought she heard the faintest hint of amusement in his voice. "I'll do my best." As they moved through the palace, her guards adjusted their formations automatically, their armor sinking in quiet pulses of light. The human didn't sync with anything. No signals, no visible connection. He walked with a steady rhythm, that same soft creak accompanying each step like an outdated soundtrack. One of the younger soldiers leaned toward another and whispered, not quite quietly enough, "Do you think it runs on fossil fuels?" The other snorted, "No, no, definitely hope, maybe stubbornness." The princess allowed herself a small smile, finally something entertaining, but as they entered the central hall something shifted, not visibly, not dramatically, just subtly. A few of the more experienced soldiers straightened. One of the commanders glanced at the human, then quickly looked away. The princess noticed. She glanced back at him. He hadn't changed. Same posture, same calm expression. Same unimpressive armor, and yet... "You're making them uncomfortable," she said suddenly. "Am I?" he asked. "Yes." He considered that for a moment. "They'll get used to it." She studied him, her ears twitching slightly as another distant crack split the sky. "You're very strange, I've been told that." "Frequently, I assume." There was a brief pause. "Enough." She let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "Good, at least you're consistent." But as she turned away again, her amusement dimmed just slightly. Because for a reason she couldn't name, she had the unsettling feeling that she wasn't the one observing him. He was observing everything. The alarms began as a polite suggestion, a soft chime that echoed through the palace like it didn't want to be rude about the possibility of danger. The princess barely looked up from the tactical display hovering in front of her. "If that is another false alert," she said, "I am personally reprogramming whoever designed this system." "It's not false," one of her officers replied, fingers moving rapidly through streams of shifting data. "Unidentified movement beyond the eastern perimeter." "Unidentified," she repeated. That usually means someone forgot to identify it. Behind her, the human spoke, or something new. She didn't turn. "Let's hope it's the first option. I prefer my problems documented." The chime sharpened into a full alarm, losing its politeness entirely. The room shifted instantly, armor activating, weapons unfolding, light bending around soldiers as they prepared for engagement. The princess stood, composed but alert, her long ears angling forward slightly. "Deploy the outer units," she ordered. "Standard formation. I want visibility before escalation." The human didn't move, she noticed. "You heard the alarm," she said, glancing back at him. "That usually indicates urgency." "I heard it," he replied, "and I'm staying here." A silence followed, not dramatic but heavy enough to be noticed. "You are my protector," she said slowly, as if explaining something very simple. "The danger is out there, yes. Then why are you in here?" He looked at her, not confused, not defensive, just steady. "Because you're in here." One of the officers made a small choking sound, quickly disguising it as a cough. The princess narrowed her eyes. "That is either loyalty," she said, "or a complete misunderstanding of strategy." "Could be both," he said. She stared at him for a moment, then waved a hand dismissively. "Fine, stay, but try not to look too decorative." "I'll try to remain functional," he answered. Outside, the first wave hit. Not with explosions, but with distortion, space itself rippling like water under pressure. The palace sensors flickered, struggling to interpret what they were seeing. "Report," she demanded. "Unknown signatures," the officer said. "They're shifting." "Not mechanical, not biological, possibly both. That's not helpful." "I'm aware." The princess exhaled sharply and moved toward the main corridor. "We observe from the secondary platform. I want direct visual." She stopped. The human had already moved ahead of her. Not quickly, not dramatically, just efficiently. He positioned himself at the entrance before she even reached it, his body angled slightly, blocking the most direct line of sight from outside. "You're doing it again," she said. "Doing what?" "Standing where danger would logically arrive." "That's usually where I'm supposed to be." She almost smiled. "At least you understand something about your job." They stepped onto the platform together. Below them, the battlefield unfolded in controlled chaos, alien soldiers moving in synchronized patterns, their armor adapting, weapons firing beams that bent around obstacles. And yet something was wrong. The enemy didn't behave like anything they had faced before. It didn't rush. It didn't retreat. It simply advanced. One of her commanders spoke through the comms. "They're ignoring direct fire, adjusting formations." "Impossible," she said. "Everything reacts to force." "Not everything," the human murmured. She glanced at him. "You seem oddly calm." "I've seen worse." She raised an eyebrow. "That is not reassuring." Below, a unit broke formation, their synchronization collapsing for a brief, chaotic second. The princess leaned forward slightly, tension creeping into her posture. "Your advanced army is losing rhythm," the human said quietly. "They are adapting," she snapped. "Maybe." She turned to him. "If you have something useful to say, now would be the time." He was silent for a moment, watching the battlefield with that same unreadable focus. Then he said, "They're trying to win." She frowned. "Of course they are. That's the problem." She stared at him. "That is the least helpful insight I have ever heard." He shrugged slightly. "Usually is." Despite everything, the alarms, the distortion, the growing unease, she let out a short laugh. "You are remarkably bad at explaining things." "I've had complaints." Another ripple tore through the battlefield, closer this time. The palace lights flickered. The princess straightened, her amusement fading just a little. "If this is your idea of worse, I am beginning to understand why you are still alive." He didn't respond. He was watching something. And for the first time, she followed his gaze, not because she wanted to, but because something in his stillness made it impossible not to. The distortion reached the palace walls without warning, folding the air inward like something trying to breathe through reality itself. The princess didn't step back this time. She stood still, eyes fixed, her long ears angled forward, listening not to sound, but to the absence of it. "Your army is losing," the human said quietly. "They are recalibrating," she replied, though the words felt thinner than before. Below, her soldiers moved faster, brighter, louder, and yet the enemy advanced without urgency, as if time itself had agreed to slow down for them. "Why aren't you doing anything?" she snapped, turning to him. "This is the moment you prove yourself, isn't it? Or does your armor require a ceremonial activation?" He looked at her, not offended, not amused, just certain. "This isn't the moment to fight." She let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "Of course it is. This is exactly when you fight." "No," he said, "this is when you decide why." Before she could respond, he reached up and unlatched the first piece of his armor. The sound was small. Almost unimpressive, she froze. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice lower now, less certain. He didn't answer immediately. The second piece came off, then the third. The ancient suit, the thing she had mocked, creaked one last time as it separated from him. "You can't be serious," she said. "You're removing the only thing that makes you remotely useful." "It's not what makes me useful," he replied. Another ripple struck, closer now. The platform trembled. Her guards tightened formation, their armor glowing brighter, louder, desperate. "Put it back on," she ordered. "That's not bravery, that's stupidity." He stepped forward out of the last piece of armor, and for the first time he looked lighter. I'm leaving, he said. She stared at him. Leaving, yes. To where? She demanded, frustration breaking through. There is nowhere to go. This entire planet is collapsing into whatever that is. He glanced at the distortion, then back at her. Exactly. She almost laughed again, but it didn't come out right. So your strategy is to walk into it. That's your grand human wisdom. It's not strategy, he said. It's choice. The word settled heavier than anything else. Below them, another unit fell out of sync, their perfect coordination unraveling into panic. For the first time, the princess saw it clearly, not failure of technology, but failure of intent. They were trying to win, trying to overpower something that didn't care about being defeated. You said they were trying to win, she murmured. Yes. And that's the problem, yes. She looked back at him, her pride shifting, not gone, but reshaped. Then what are you doing? He gave the faintest hint of a smile, not trying to win. Before she could stop him, he stepped past her. Unarmored, unshielded, unimpressive, and somehow more terrifying than anything on that battlefield. Wait, she said, the word slipping out before she could stop it. He paused just slightly. Why you? She asked. He didn't turn, because I can. Then he walked forward into the distortion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the battlefield changed, not with an explosion, not with light, but with silence. The ripples slowed. The impossible shapes hesitated, as if something within them had been interrupted. Her soldiers stopped firing, not by command, but because there was nothing left to aim at. The distortion folded inward one last time, then unraveled like a mistake being corrected. And then it was gone. The sky remained cracked, the ground still scarred, but the movement, the pressure, the impossible presence, it had vanished. The princess stood there, unmoving. One of her officers spoke carefully. Is it over? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the place where the human had disappeared. No, she said softly. It's understood. Days later, the palace was quieter. Not peaceful, but different. Her guards still moved in perfect synchronization, their armor still flawless. But she noticed the hesitation now, the small moments where certainty used to be. She stood on the same platform, the wind carrying the faint echo of a world that had almost ended. One of her advisors approached. Your Highness, the council requests a full report on the human. She nodded slowly. Of course they do. And what will you tell them? She allowed herself a small, thoughtful smile. That he worked, she said. The advisor blinked. That's all. She glanced once more at the horizon, her long ears catching the distant hum of a recovering world. For now, she added, that's enough. And for the first time, she didn't laugh. The armor stood in the corner of the chamber like an awkward guest who had overstayed a war. No one touched it. The princess had ordered it moved 3 times, and 3 times it somehow ended up back in the same place, leaning slightly to one side, as if it refused to be properly stored out of sheer stubbornness. She stared at it now, arms crossed. It doesn't even look important, she muttered. It saved the planet, one of her advisors said carefully. It didn't do anything, she replied. He did. The advisor nodded, then hesitated. Respectfully, Your Highness, we still don't understand what he did. She exhaled slowly, her long ears tilting back for a moment before settling again. Neither do I. That more than anything unsettled her. Days had passed since the distortion vanished. The skies were still fractured, the atmosphere still unstable, but the world was no longer unraveling. Her armies had regrouped, their perfect formations restored, their confidence mostly repaired. Yet something lingered, a question no one could answer. She walked toward the armor. Up close it looked even more ridiculous, scratched, uneven, entirely lacking in elegance. She reached out, hesitated for half a second, then tapped it lightly. It made a dull, unimpressive sound. That's it, she said. No hidden systems, no secret weapons, no dramatic activation sequence. Not that we found, the advisor admitted. She frowned. I mocked this. Yes, I laughed at him. Yes. She tilted her head slightly. That feels incorrect now. The advisor wisely said nothing. She circled the armor slowly. He said it worked. It appears that it did. No, she said, stopping. That's not what he meant. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. He wasn't talking about the armor, she continued. He was talking about himself. The realization settled into the room like something quietly undeniable. The advisor cleared his throat. Your Highness, the Council is still requesting clarification. They want to know if humans are a threat. She almost smiled. Humans, she said slowly, are not a threat in the way we understand threats. That is not a reassuring statement. It's not supposed to be. She turned away from the armor and moved toward the open platform. The sky beyond was calmer now, though the cracks still shimmered faintly, like scars that refused to fade. They build weapons, she continued, but they don't rely on them. They wear armor, but they don't believe in it. And when everything else fails, she paused, they choose. The advisor followed her gaze. Choose what? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped forward, standing exactly where the human had stood days before. For the first time, she said quietly, I think I understand why he stayed. The advisor blinked. Stayed, he left. She shook her head slightly. No. He left the armor, not the purpose. Another silence, this one heavier. You believe he's still alive? The advisor asked. She allowed herself a small, almost amused breath. I believe that if anyone could walk into something that erases reality and treat it like a minor inconvenience, she glanced back at the armor, it would be him. That earned the faintest, most uncertain smile from the advisor. I don't think the council will accept that as a formal report, he said. They won't, she agreed, but they'll accept this. She straightened, her posture shifting, not less proud but more grounded, less performative, more certain. Tell them the human did not fight to win, she said. Tell them he did not act to impress. Tell them, she paused, choosing the words carefully, tell them he solved the problem. The advisor nodded slowly, and if they ask how? Oh, this time she did smile. Tell them, she said, her long ears angling slightly forward, that we're still trying to understand why that question matters to them. The wind moved gently across the platform, carrying with it the quiet hum of a world recovering, adapting, learning. Behind her, the armor remained where it was, unimpressive, silent, working in its own way, and for the first time since the war began, the princess did not look for something to laugh at, she looked for something to learn. Tell them the human did not fight to win, she said. Tell them he did not act to impress. Tell them, she paused, choosing the words carefully, tell them he solved the problem. The advisor nodded slowly, and if they ask how? Oh, this time she did smile. Tell them, she said, her long ears angling slightly forward, that we're still trying to understand why that question matters to them. The wind moved gently across the platform, carrying with it the quiet hum of a world recovering, adapting, learning. Behind her, the armor remained where it was, unimpressive, silent, working in its own way, and for the first time since the war began, the princess did not look for something to laugh at, she looked for something to learn.